her very own special forces who'd protected her from the bad guys but couldn't protect her now. Wishing she could have heard his voice one last time and told him what she knew. "Why are you crying?" She hadn't even realized. But yes, a tear had slipped down her face. "Babe, WTF? What's up?" wrote Jason. But she ignored him, writing to the punter instead. "What's your name?" she typed. For a second or so, she thought he might not respond, things getting a bit weird for him, maybe. But then it came back. Peter. That was probably a lie, but as one who'd been living under a false identity for so long, she could hardly judge. Either way, it felt better knowing his name, alias or not. "I'm sorry for what's about to happen, Peter," she wrote. "What's about to happen?" wrote Peter. "It isn't your fault," she typed. "What isn't?" came the reply. "This," she wrote. And she pulled the gun from under the duvet, using 2 hands as she put the barrel upside down into her mouth. She closed her eyes, and for a moment or so she paused in order to look for the courage inside, trying to find the strength to do what she needed to do. And she found that strength. She found it because she had no other option. Because she had no choice. She said something around the barrel of the gun, 2 final words, and then pulled the trigger. Part 1. Chapter 1. The street in Finsbury Park was much like any other residential London road. Rows of terraced homes bunched up on either side, cars nudged into every available space, each house telling its own story. This one, home to a retired couple, well kept, tidy and house-proud. Wheelie bins neatly arranged out front. This one, student digs. Overgrown patch of yard out front, windows dirty, shabby curtains that never seemed to open. This one, stickers in the window, paper chains hanging off the frame, home to a noisy family of 4. There was one particular house, however, where things weren't quite so easily delineated. Neighbours knew that a family of Eastern Europeans lived there, Bulgarians, Russians, nobody was sure, and that they had a lot of visitors. The woman always had a smile, and the husband, if that's what he was, no formal introductions had been made, was a big chap, no stranger to the tattooist, and maybe not the sort you want to meet in a dark alley on a foggy night, but always perfectly pleasant if you saw him in the street. And that was it. If you passed and looked into the front room, often you'd see a much older man who whiled away the hours watching TV, and you'd probably think it was heartwarming that the older members of their family were being looked after in their dotage. Not like the British, who are happy to let them rot in an old folks' home. One of the regular visitors to the house was Sergei Vinitsky, now walking along the pavement, hunched up against the chill of the pre-dawn, his hands thrust into the pockets of the hooded parka he wore, feeling dog-tired. He opened the low gate and let himself into the yard. Raising his hand to knock, he noticed that he still had blood beneath his fingernails, and he made a mental note to wash his hands thoroughly before he slept, which would, with any luck, be very soon indeed. He knocked at the front door. 1, 2, pause. 1, 2, pause. 1, 2. As he was knocking, he glanced into the front window of the house. Sure enough, sitting in his favourite chair in the front room was the man they called Grandfather, glued to an episode of some TV programme, cup of tea at hand. To look at him, you'd never know that this particular old man had killed and killed again, and that his favourite method of execution was to remove body parts one by one, literally to cut his victims to death. The door was opened by Dimitri's English wife, Karen. A welcoming smile dropped from her face like falling bricks as she closed the door behind Sergei and indicated for him to make his way along the hall. He remembered himself, stopped and called to Grandfather in the front room. "Hello, Dad," he said, Dad being the name reserved for those unrelated to Grandfather. Dimitri, his actual grandson, called him Dedushka. Karen, too. At the sound of the greeting, the old man turned his head in Sergei's direction and grinned toothlessly, his beady eyes gleaming. He inclined his head in reply, then switched his attention back to the TV. The Skinsman, they called him.